Welcome to the Inspired to Be Authentic podcast. I am your host, Matt Lansadell. Inspired to Be Authentic is a podcast where we converse with people who are living their most authentic lives. We get real with our guests and talk openly about how they live with courage to be themselves. We explore barriers they have overcome to be more authentic and aligned to themselves and their purpose. Today is episode 29, and we are joined by Sam Garcia. Welcome.
Thank you. So beautiful to be here.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. Today, we're going to be talking about the spiritual approach to trauma recovery. This is a very, very big thing. It's happening. There's a lot of trauma happening on this planet. A lot of people's old past traumas are coming up. So if you're somebody who's experienced trauma in your past, in your childhood, and you find that this stuff just keeps reoccurring in patterns or shadows in your life, today we're going to be unpacking some different recovery strategies from a spiritual perspective on how we can start to work and heal our trauma. So yeah, I want to just introduce Sam formally. So Sam is called to connect and work with trauma recovery coaching, spiritual mentoring, and soul retrieval clients that are connected to their spirituality
Mm, mm,
and have a sense of their own daily spiritual practice and are doing their emotional and mental work. In addition, his intention is to support men and women who want to move past their trauma and embody the gifts of their wounds and are ready to move into the next level of their personal power. They have a support system and which would be like a therapist, counselor, psychologist, mentors, close friends, family. And Sam would be an addition to your support team. He is here to support, empower, uplift, and be a peer in your healing journey. It is a great honor and his holy privilege to work with you in this capacity. He looks forward to supporting you in your healing journey.
mm.
Yeah, this is really exciting. This is why I've been connected to you. I know that. Usually, my guests on my podcast are people that I've aligned to because of my own personal journey, whatever's coming up. And I was connected to you by our mutual friend Tony Harris.
Yes, yes, yes.
Love and adore her. She's
Yeah.
probably going to be listening to this at some point. So shout out
Yay.
to Tony. Yay!
Hey, Tony.
Hey. um, and I'm also working through some childhood stuff, some old trauma baggage that's there. So, and you have also made it clear that that's some stuff that you're working through as well, and we're both kind of walking the path together. So today we're going to just unpack and share a little bit about maybe our own journeys and our own recoveries and how we help clients through their trauma recovery, and we'll just really get our hands nice and dirty in the trauma recovery area. I'd love to start just by getting to know a little bit more about you. So, yeah, do you want to maybe just share a little bit more about yourself and what gets you lit up in this life?
Oh, great question. Thank you. What gets me lit up in this life? Well, I think for starters, I want to say, I think what lights me up is really to like how um, to support people in moving past their trauma stories, as I would say, right? So like as a survivor myself, like uh, it's been important for me to thrive and not much be the survivor, but to like be the thriver as well, right?
Hmm.
And so like so I love that thriving part. And so and then what I really love doing is supporting people and like transforming and releasing uh, the old stories that they personally made up, right? That's number one. And then also the other stories that they adopted from their abusers, right? And so those two things of doing my own personal work with that, it was just a complete like wake up. I'm like, oh my God, like I can't believe that I took for I'm 50 now, so almost 50 years of like stuff from childhood from my cousins would say over and over again, and I believed it. And I'm like, whoa, stop the press. you know, like this is not my jam, my friend. So here, take this back, please.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and and then at the same time, like releasing my own stuff that I made up at the same time about myself, right? And so and how that ran me for years, right? And so even to this day, I have to set boundaries for myself, and like, for like especially irrational fears that keep spinning. And I'm like, Sam, no, we're not doing that anymore, buddy.
Mm.
Like, so really to help to shapeshift the brain, especially the amygdala center where the emotional center is, right? And so the self boundaries has been really a huge help into really shapeshift the neural pathways. Right. I like the other day I was talking to my sister Serena, and there's a guy named Dr. Joe Dispenza. Have you heard of him?
Sure have, yeah.
And so I've heard of him, but I would like to get more into his work, but just how, from what little I heard about shapeshifting the thoughts and of the brain, and just, to shapeshift the neural pathways into a more, a better way of thinking of oneself. So yeah, so that lights me up. And yeah, I think I've been on this healing journey, recovery journeys, 25 plus years. So I probably think I remember like when I was about 25, 24, 25. And I did, do you remember the Landmark Forum?
Yeah.
Like, it used to be called S. And so that was like my first, transmission, anything. And I bought in the I bit into the Kool-Aid, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So, but then it just, it kept moving on from there. And but yeah, so I for years I just thought, like, oh my God, I can like shapeshift things. So let's, just dive in and just go as deep as I can. And went into AA, into recovery, and I went into like um, something called Men's Inner Journey. It's a gay men's retreat. Uh, who's the guy that made it? Michael something. I can't remember his last name.
Mm.
Anyway, so um, then Mankind Project, and then other workshops, and then I got into shamanism with my teacher for 15 plus years, and she's still my teacher, so I think it's a lifelong thing with her.
Yeah.
So I just fucking love her to pieces, Shar Sundust, and she's just like my everything, that woman.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so it for all those years I just was like, well, let's just go ahead and hurry up and do all this work, because so that way I don't have to deal with this crap anymore. And so like let's get into this. And so it was like chasing after that what do they call that, the workshop high,
Mm-hmm.
that I got addicted to that basically.
Yeah.
And so right, so it was just like, and it wasn't until like recently that I just was like, wow, I've been there's this sort of addiction to transformation, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how about we don't have to search for stuff to work on, Sam, just let it happen naturally.
Yeah.
So that's been a big thing recently.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and I also resonate with that too, because I think the pursuit of transformation is actually incited by the ego. The ego, we develop a spiritual ego essentially in our transformative process, and
Right,
uh,
right.
because the soul on the transformative process, it just allows the transformation to happen, and the ego brings resistance to it. So it's like I always know when I'm in ego, when I'm trying too hard
Mm,
to transform or
yeah.
to look for things to transform, right? Because the ego is attached to outcome, whereas the soul is allowing the outcome to come to the resolve of whatever it's meant to be. It doesn't know, it just allows.
Uh-huh. I like that allowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just how do I say, um I can breathe easier when that from that word allowing, rather than just kind of be like, yeah, butting heads to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the recovering perfectionist, that's definitely
uh
a thing of my past as well, and sometimes it even creeps back in. But about my transformation, and especially the way I view my body and things like that. It's a lot of perfectionism,
Mm,
a lot of
right.
resistance, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to set the tone for the show, because I think there might be some people that they might understand what the word trauma means, but like in the context of like how we're defining it, how do we want to define trauma for this podcast episode?
Great question. I I want to say, I'm just waiting for some clarity here, because
Hmm.
there's a I can get the sensation in my chest, but no words are coming out right now.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time.
Hmm. I want to say like like so discomfort is what's coming forward, and you know, my sense is that when oh, here's something that's coming forward. So you know how like how when people say, you know, we come in as a soul, and you know, and we're like this pure light, pure joy, and all these things, right? And so then what happens is that we come into what's a lineage, right? Like our parents, right? And then we have all the ancestral lineages, right? And then and so then what ends up happening is that like it's like when the very first time when my cousin basically like comes in and asks me to, you know, give him oral sex, right, at 4 years old, and to a 4-year-old kid, it's like, what the hell are you doing? What the fuck is this, right? Sorry, I don't mean to swear on this.
Yeah, feel free. That's all good.
Okay. And you know, and I'm just like, you know, and so, and then but and then growing up without the father, it's like, okay, well, put father into this human being, because he's a bigger dude, and this must be what is meant to happen or something, right?
Hmm.
And and so you know, and then you know, and then time goes on, and then you know, this happens again and again and again. So it's like, and not just him. Then here comes other cousins, and so then it just all of a sudden. Somehow, I mean, I was always a joyous kid, but somehow the joy got dampened for after a
Mm.
while, you know. And so like, so I kind of, you know, to me it's like trauma's like, it's like we're full of light, and all of a sudden, you know, the shadow stuff starts coming in, and then dampen out the light,
Mm.
right? And so and then so it fast forward after all those years, you know, from like age 4 to 12, um coming into a relationship, you know, then all of a sudden I build these protective walls, like, you know, let's how do I say, when I get into a group of people, let's make everybody happy,
Mm.
so that I can feel safe, right? And I did that for years with my mom, especially,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know, caretaking and all that jazz. And so uh, so I think the trauma, you know, it's like it's I love what my teachers say. It's like we're having a normal response to an abnormal experience, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, okay, I hear you. You know, and so so I think it's really just you know, distress, discomfort, and um, you know, especially when something's physically done, right? And not, it doesn't have to be sexual abuse. It could be emotional abuse, you know, and like just the constant words that I hear when I was a kid. So when we were kids, we just sponge everything up, right?
Yeah.
And so the amygdala and all the hippocampus and the neural pathways just, and so it takes years to break all that shit up. you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a long answer, but that's sort of how I view trauma.
Yeah, I think I would probably say something similar. My traumatic experiences when I was younger were very relational, and they had to do with loss and they had to do with abandonment. And
Right.
so for me, it was this trauma for me resembles a lack of safety and a lack of control
Mhm.
and
Yes, yes, yes.
feeling out of control, actually. So I ended up developing a lot of control issues um, to try and maintain safety. And that's
Right.
how my trauma manifested itself in my body. I think was my lower chakral centers became quite dormant and blocked
Mm-hmm.
because the root chakra in the body at the base of the spine is where we hold security, safety, kind of sense of ourself in the world. And
Right.
when we experience loss or abandonment, that center, that energy center, tends to become blocked. And I definitely experienced that. I've had a lot of my physical manifestations in this life revolve around my pelvis and having pelvic pain and having kidney stones and having different sort of issues in that respect. And so it's really fascinating. And I think when you look at trauma, I think spirituality tends to look at trauma from a little bit more of a body focus, whereas
Mm-hmm.
psychology tends to look at it from more of a mental focus and how
Correct. Correct.
they both bleed into each other, though. Don't get me wrong, but
Mhm.
so today it's interesting because if we're talking about a spiritual approach to trauma recovery, um, what would you say is something that you that really worked well for you as far as helping you heal from your trauma?
Wow. There's been many avenues, but I want to say like it's been. Do you know anything about IFS, internal family systems?
Yeah, you told me a bit
Uh,
about it last time we
uh,
chatted.
Dick
Yeah.
Schwartz. So I got introduced to that like in 2009, and my dear friend Dina, who's a therapist. Um, it was one of those things where when I understood how different parts of myself, were like my protective mechanisms and my lashing out mechanisms, right? Like kind of two ways of protecting myself. It's either like lashing out or managing myself, right? And just managing how I operate in the world.
Yeah.
And and then everything was just to protect the wounds and to protect the wounds, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And so that work really helped to really kind of like tease my fragmented brain, basically, and like, okay, let's start at each age, and basically like go to directly to the moments when the trauma happened, and then to like insert me, the adult self, to shapeshift and heal and basically like kind of retrieve myself back home
Yeah.
to myself, right? And like, oh, let's dust off all the anger, the rage, and the hurt, and the pain, and all that jazz, right? And all the different stories that I made up, and whatever came from the cousins. And um, easier said than done, believe me. Like
Yeah.
it's just like forget about it. But when when it does, it's like I build the relationship with my own protective system, and which helped me to kind of go ask permission to kind of go into those wounds, to bring healing to those wounds, and then the protective system of myself can relax, and that my authentic self can move forward, right? Because that's
Mm.
really who's driving, not really my protective system and my wounds, right?
Yeah.
And so when I heard like that, that's like that's me, the authentic self is who's really driving my own body, basically, or my life, and not from all these protective systems. And I was like, Oh, wow. So like you mean to tell me that like I am really not all these things that I made up myself to be, or and all, and just these little things. And so, but who I am is just like me solid here as an adult human being, right? And to live through my heart kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so, that was huge, man. But and the shamanism and soul retrieval work that I did about 6 of those in the last 15 years.
Yeah, it's
um,
amazing. I
so
want
that was
to I want to learn more about the soul retrieval, but I think what we can do is I want to go through because basically what you just did is you just created a beautiful timeline for us to kind of conceptualize this because you look at the protection mechanisms and
hmm
that kind of being like the things that well, first of all, we have the trauma and then we have the things that we accumulate around the trauma to protect us from having the trauma wound being constantly activated,
right,
and
right.
then that is the insulation that keeps our authentic self from being able to emerge. And one of the ways that to start to access authentic self is to clear trauma. Would you agree with that statement? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just basically, yeah, clearing out the history. Yeah.
Clearing out the history. So I wanted to I shared a video with you from Christina Lopes, and we both ate that up. It was delicious. So I wanted to maybe unpack that a
Yeah.
little bit with you because I think there's so much in that video, and I'll put it in the show notes for people so they can also watch it. But basically, what she talks about in the video is about empaths and highly sensitive people and how we
Mm.
experience trauma at a higher capacity or at a lower capacity actually to tolerate um, trauma. So we get traumatized a lot easier as highly sensitive people. And she does a lot of work with empaths and highly sensitive people. And she's talking about the protection mechanisms that we develop in childhood to allow us to cope with the trauma. So they're actually adaptive mechanisms that we use when we're children, but they become maladaptive as we get older. And so there's four of them, and I want to unpack them with you. So maybe what we can do is, well, I'll read them off, and then why don't you pick one, and we can talk about it. You can talk a bit about it, and then if I have anything to add, and we'll just kind of go back and forth. So the four mechanisms that she talks about are premature ego formation,
Mm.
soul fragmentation,
Mhm.
heart closure, and mental dissociation. These are the four mechanisms. So why don't we go through? Just pick one that speaks to you, and we'll unpack it, and then we'll move on.
Oof. And the last three really struck me. But the one that came out was soul fragmentation.
Yeah, I was gonna say that one's right up your alley. So what does that
Yeah.
mean to you? What does soul fragmentation mean to you?
Well, it really, hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it just goes into so much evil work. But I think how I can kind of speak about this in layman's terms is that you know, you remember how I was just talking about like how our protective systems, come in and so forth. And so like and so I want to kind of go back a little bit further. So during those traumatic events, when they happen, um, it's like a part of our essence exits out of the system, right? And so when that exits out of the system, that's our like our joy, our trust and our power, just for example. And so um and and so in my case, where when there's complex trauma, it's like those soul essences. It's like everything for all those years. Like there were so many fragments of just like, okay, that's gone, this is gone, that's gone, and so over the years, it's just been kind of like pulling those fragments back into myself, right? And in the terms of what you're speaking to, what is this woman's name again? I forgot her name.
Christina Lopes.
Christina Lopes. Yeah. And what I hear her saying, uh, like say for example, if I haven't been doing my work for all these years, like those fragmentations in the way I walk in the world is just like I would probably be like a freaking, fear ball walking everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because that's what it's been like as through this I call them irrational fears,
Yeah.
right? And so like it's like my body, one of the things I learned with my teacher Char is that the soul is what animates the body, right? And so it's like we're in our souls, and so it's like my nervous system was highly attuned to the outside world. And what happens was that like I projected my trauma to the whole entire planet.
Mm.
So it could be a person walking by not doing anything to me, but for some reason, whatever it is, it's like my body is just like, whoa, what is that? Ooh, who is this? And just like, Sam, it's just a person walking by. That's all that's happening, right? So it took years to train my nervous system to relax,
Yeah.
right? And so when I hear soul fragmentation, that's just like, everything has just been kind of like so heightened and fragmented that just a normal person walking by doing anything, even just a look, um, would just trigger something in my brain.
Yeah.
It's fucking weird, but anyway, it's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
like, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say you said something that really stood out to me, and that's about the nervous system. And I think the nervous system is where a lot of this stuff is stored. It's kind of like our barometer
Hmm.
for the
Hmm.
amount of trauma we've experienced. And when we are really intuitive or empathic or highly sensitive, our nervous systems tend to be a lot more sensitive as well,
Yeah.
right? So we're constantly having to learn how to regulate. And emotion regulation is actually a huge part of trauma recovery.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I think we can maybe unpack that next after we kind of go through these pieces here. But I just wanted to affirm what you said around the nervous system and the importance of trauma recovery and learning how to
Yeah.
regulate the nervous system. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
huge.
That's ginormous. I mean, I like what you said earlier about the adaptive and the maladaptive coping mechanisms, right? And the regulation is yeah, it's like I can't tell you how many regulation styles that I've learned over the years
Hmm.
to get myself back into center. I mean,
And
it's like,
yeah,
yeah,
and this is the meat. This is what people want. So we need to make sure that we speak to some of those strategies
yeah,
towards the end of the podcast, because
for
people,
sure.
it's like great, they hear the theory, they're like, yeah, I identify myself, yep, that's me, that's me, and then oftentimes people just leave them cliffhanging, right? It's like, so I'd
Uh,
love today to be like truly about trauma recovery, so we can
hey,
unpack like all the stuff and paint the picture nicely, and then I'd love to leave some stuff out for the people to really eat up. Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful,
Yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
So I'm going to talk about premature ego formation actually, because this is a big deal for me. And this is what I'm going through right now. I'm going through a bit of a spiritual process in my life where my ego is actually dissolving. And
Mm.
it's not going without a massive fight. And
Right, right, right.
when I was younger, through my experiences, I developed an ego at quite a young age. I would probably say around 7. There was some unsafe stuff occurring in my environment and around some of the loss and the abandonment and my parents splitting up and things like that. And I quickly learned to focus on everybody else, and I developed almost like a codependency. And in that codependency, it was this sub personality, or this part of me that made myself less important and made everybody else important around me. And I
Mm.
misused my own empathy, and I lost my sense of self in that process. And so I kind of developed this ego mechanism that related to the world from um, almost like a nothing can bother me, nothing can impact me. And I developed a callousness, when really underneath that callousness was a really sensitive, wounded young
Mhm.
boy.
Mhm.
And so this part of me became controlling. It became really repressed.
Mm.
I repressed my feelings for a very, very long time. I ended up developing an addiction
Mm.
because of that, and just had very poor emotional regulation. And it wasn't even it was over-regulation. I was over-regulating my emotions, and not allowing myself to experience my emotions, and that's why my trauma never healed. And my ego was how I did that. So it was like this stoic mask. My ego wears this stoic mask, and then so anyway, so through my healing journey, I've been doing a lot of embodiment work and getting into the meat of who I am, and into the flesh of who I am, and out of the mind, because I've realized quite later in life that you can't actually think your way through your feelings. You have to
Ooh,
feel your way through your feelings.
yes.
and and you know what's really fascinating, a realization I've had quite recently is that as an empath, I've been spending my life feeling other people's feelings and not feeling my own feelings. And
Ah,
what it's been a protection mechanism for me, a maladaptive one to say the least. And what it's doing is it's keeping me what I think is safe by focusing on everybody else's experience and not focusing on myself. And then I think I'm feeling my feelings because I'm thinking about feeling my feelings. And then I'm
mm,
wondering why I'm not healing, because you have to actually feel in order to heal.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so embodiment has been huge, and that's how I'm dissolving my ego, is through embodiment, and spending as much time in my body and doing a lot of healing work in my body. But it's hard, and I want to give a little bit of a tip for people who also resonate with this, because in
Mhm,
order for the mind to quiet enough to get into the body, you have to first prime the ego. You have to give the ego reason to get on board with the surrender process of embodiment,
mhm,
because otherwise it renders itself useless. It's like, well, why would I want to surrender when I'm not going to be useful? So you have to kind of give this egoic part of you, this wounded part of you, reason
mhm,
to want to make this transformation happen. And Christina Lopes talks about that as priming the ego. You're getting it ready for the transformation. So I've created an inner dialogue with my inner child and my ego, and I
mm.
communicate with him daily and just really reassure him. And it's like kind of like the reparenting, right?
Yes, yes.
There's a lot of research in the trauma field around reparenting, and
Yeah.
how we have to reparent the part of ourselves that felt wounded. So yes, this premature ego formation, in order to reverse that mechanism, we have to soothe the ego. And we approach the ego with
Mhm.
love and compassion, and allow it to
Exactly.
have part in the surrender process. So, yeah.
Well, I love everything you just said because I can totally relate in a huge way. You know, um, one of the things with IFS, I call it parts work for short, and so how I hear what you're saying is just like working with the ego part of you and the child part of you, and I love the self-parenting, right? And to really like open up the heart, and like I one of the things I love to do is to breathe myself bigger than all the other parts of me, and so everything in me can relax,
Mm.
right? And so like, okay, I want to breathe myself a lot bigger than every all parts of me, just like everything. And so that space, when you say that love and compassion, it's like it's just my brain, my whole nervous system can like, oh, someone's here. Okay, I don't have to be, front and center all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Kind of thing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and I can relax. I'm like, yeah, aren't you tired?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So we got two left. You choose the next one. So heart closure or mental dissociation. If there's anything you'd like to speak on those or relate to them in any way with the audience.
I like the heart closure part, the one.
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, I remember in my probably like the first, no, probably third year of my shamanic training,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I learned from there was when I first heard the term, live through your heart, Sam, like live through your heart and, see through the eyes of your heart. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? I can't even fucking do that. Like, I'm so fucking closed down. Are you kidding right now? And so, and so, you know, and, uh, and so, it took, I remember when we first started rattling, uh, one of my classmates was just rattling so freaking hard around my chest, and it was almost kind of thumping my thymus,
Mm,
and it's like, open up, Sam. Like, I can't, I fucking can't right now. And and I just didn't even know how to. I mean, I meditated and stuff, but it was still a hard time to learn how to relax.
mm,
Especially especially at that time.
yeah.
And so um, but I think what did help, because I love dance like a lot, and so that's one of the things that that I teach is called soul dance, and so transformation through movement, right? And so five rhythms in an ecstatic dance, and so that was one of the things that, like, even in my 20s, like, we're going out to nightclubs in New York and all the different gay meccas that I used to live in. Um, uh, that was my mm, how do I say, my one mechanism for healing myself, right? Like, just dance like a freaking maniac, and then by the time I'm done, my heart's open. And I dance for fucking hours until the wee hours in the morning, right?
Hmm.
So and so back to that class. It just took a while to just. I mean, I could even felt like, the moment that I felt there was kind of some kind of danger, like I literally felt my body like shrinking around my chest,
Hmm.
and I'm like, oh, this is not cool. Okay, so I would take a look around, observe my surroundings. No, nobody's hurting me. It's okay, Sam. And just again, it took years to relax the chest part.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I can so relate. I think that's probably one of my biggest ones was heart closure. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's repression, right? Repressing ourselves, constricting. We're constricting the parts of ourselves, putting up the walls so nobody
Yeah,
can hurt us. But what
right.
we're doing in that process is we're not allowing in hurt, but we're not allowing in love as well.
Exactly.
We don't get to select which emotions come in and out of the walls. We just put the wall up, right? So and that's been a big part of my life is connecting with people through my mind and thinking that I'm connecting in a loving way, but I'm actually quite closed off. And it's not
Mm.
until recent that I've got this feedback from people in my life that I'm quite stoic and I'm quite cold at times. And I live from my mind a lot. And it's there's some truth to it as well. And I'm doing a lot of work right now to open myself up from my heart center more. And I know that when my heart is open, I'm playful. I'm
Mhm.
connecting with my innocence. I'm compassionate. I'm accepting of others. So these are beautiful experiences that I want to have, but I'm not quite there yet, where I can spend consecutive amounts of time or days in this state. But embodied dance has helped me a lot too. Actually, I try my best to
Mm.
dance daily and move daily,
Mhm.
because the movement of energy is so critical in
Yeah.
this process. And actually moving, opening up my base chakra was pretty big for me, and that's what I'm doing now. And then once that opens up, you allow yourself to feel safe and belong, and then you start to move into the heart opening. So yeah, it's definitely a procedure. But so Christina Lopes says deep connection and devotion with the body. This is how to open the heart. Tantra massage,
Mm.
heart mantras, heart light exercise, and compassion training. So again, this will all be in the video when we share it.
Mhm.
Is there anything else you want to share on opening the heart?
Well, yeah. So, I love that you touched on tantric massage, and I
Yeah.
also love compassion work. The other thing I wanted to touch on is how grief can open up the heart. Um, uh, just, I think I shared with you already. My best and dearest closest friend of 30 years passed away 3 weeks ago,
Hmm.
and so like, and this person was, how do I say? It's going to lead to what I'm talking about with the heart opening and closing, which is that this is the person that I recently found out last week, which was that I grew up without a father, and my stepfather came when I was about 8, um, and so that was so-so relationship until later got better, but that when I met Poco, um, I didn't know the depth of how he filled that father role
Hmm.
until I went through the process last Monday.
Hmm.
And so how his passing really touched my heart in a really deep way. And so the grieving has opened up the heart in such a way that I'm learning to how do I say to love like everybody, included, especially definitely myself, but just everyone exactly how they are. Um, and easier said than done, but
Hmm.
there's something about that group that is teaching me to like, Sam, you just gotta love everybody, love yourself number one, and then everybody else exactly how they are,
Hmm.
even if they're not so great people.
Hmm.
you know and but everybody's growing in their own pace, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so that's my recent thing. It's kind of like and again, easier said than done, but it's like when the grief happens, it's like it just opens up empathy, opens up so much. So I'm like, that's no one. I mean, I grieved before, but this is just, when it's close to home like this is quite something.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
and I love how you talk about grief, because that I truly think that we mask our trauma. The top layer is usually anger, rage, callousness,
right?
minimization, all of these things, and then below that is grief.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Grief, sorrow, despair, sadness, these really, really dense, heavy emotions of of the loss of our innocence. That's what I feel like it is so when we meet our trauma, whether it be in embodiment or in mind, even, it's we're coming up against grief, and
Hmm.
we're really being asked to sit with
Ah,
um, that grief and allow it to release. And it can be so painful, but it's what's on the other side of that. It's like letting the floodgates opening, and then you can start to feel your connection to your authenticity. And because it's been guarded, it's been blocked, and also connection to your innocence. I had a profound experience a few weeks ago in a ceremony where I was connecting to my inner child, and I was able to connect with playfulness in a way that I haven't since I was a little boy. And it
mm,
was
wow,
so powerful. It was a mushroom
wow.
ceremony. And I just started giggling, and I started like being like this little joker and this little trickster, and like just like this energy came out in me, and it was so cool, because I was like, wow, I'm like, I haven't felt this energy since I was a little kid. And I was like just like hopping around my house all excited, and it was just really cool.
I love it.
And so to just, it
So
was almost like
beautiful.
spirit gave me a taste of that, because it's like, this is what's coming. This is what this is
Yes.
why we wanted you to taste this, because you need to keep trudging through this darkness, because on the other side of this is your integration with your inner child, so you can start to play again, and you can start to have fun and start to love freely. And it was really, really cool. So that was a taste of hope for me to keep doing this deep work that I'm in now, because I know on the other side of it's going to be some really beautiful stuff. So I'm excited
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Amen to that, brother.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Amen to
I
that.
I freaking love that a lot. Yeah, I love that you said uh the mushroom journey, because I did a with a therapist, an MDMA journey.
Okay. Yeah.
And so that you know um, it helped me to love everything that was coming forward, right? And then and to grieve it, but then also to like come back to that joy, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, right, this is again, like from what we were saying earlier, this is who I really am,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, and I love that you just said that. So
Yeah, yeah. Psilocybin has been something that I've used very infrequently, but when I do, it's an interesting experience that I have because it's almost like what happens is I completely my ego structure goes dormant while I'm yeah, and it just it falls to the side and it allows me to access my authentic self immediately.
yeah,
And then what ends up happening when the medicine starts to wear off, it's like my ego goes and comes right back in. So it's like it just gives me this taste of what it can feel like if you keep moving forward, right? And that's why I don't think plant medicine is the be all end all, but I do think that
right,
there's value in having a
yeah,
glimpse of yourself in your authentic nature because your ego has been removed and it gives you that perspective, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
um so yeah, it's really
yeah,
cool. It allows me to embody a lot easier.
right.
And sometimes I'll also smoke a bit of cannabis or eat cannabis once in a while as well, and that's I have that same experience is I become embodied right away, and I love dancing after I've smoked a little bit of cannabis because it's like it just pulls you out of your head, it allows you just to enter your body. And but I do try and dance every day, not using cannabis because I don't want to become dependent on something in order
Yeah,
to be
right,
embodied.
right.
So I just use it as a treat once in a while.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that you said that because it's I would say it's like a tool of many tools,
Hmm.
right? To experience something like that,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I love that. What one of the things that I've learned over the years, especially with my teacher Shar, is it's called a warrior meditation, and it's just literally like just standing with the shoulder feet apart, and with my eyes just kind of just looking at whatever outside I'm in, and it's just this beautiful like standing meditation, and it literally just helps me to like I feel myself. Oh, here's my feet. Oh, here's my low back. Here's my spine, and just breathing and then just like seeing the outside nature. And so
Mm.
just having that stance and just being there and just being quiet, it's really embodying, as you would say.
Yeah.
Anyway, I
Yeah.
love
Cool.
it. Hmm.
Right on. Okay, mental dissociation is the last one. So, you know, it's when I watched this video, I was like, damn it, I got all of these. This is so unfair.
I hear you.
but this is my path, and I honor my path. So mental dissociation for me is shows up again in the form of repression. So it's almost like taking refuge out of your body and into your mind, where you start to become you start to basically uh, do the opposite of embodiment. You live your life out of your mind and you don't enter your body because, and especially for people who've experienced physical trauma, where sexual trauma or abuse, physical abuse, they want to exit their body because their body is this place
Mhm.
that they experience their trauma, so they go and they dissociate in their mind. And dissociation can also be kind of like creating this separate sense of self, or this separate personality almost, where you take refuge within. But again, it's just a sub personality of your mind. And I think mental dissociation and premature ego formation are kind of very, very closely linked, because
Mm.
if you look at the what an ego structure is it's a sub personality that of the mind, of who we think we are or who we think we have to be. And I think mental dissociation can kind of be similar. um her suggestions were inner child work is the primary thing of working through mental dissociation. And again, the inner child is also a subpersonality structure of our lived experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe where we have gotten stuck in our developmental stages. So she says guided meditations make adult me safe, and become a whole adult first. So before you
Mm-hmm.
start approaching inner child work, one of the recommendations is to make sure that you're not approaching your inner child from a state of being a hot mess, because
Yeah,
your inner child is going to be like, why would I want to listen to you? You're a
totally.
hot mess. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
matter of like doing some of this work first, so you can
Yeah.
get to a place where when you start to have the dialogue with your inner child, you're coming from a place of somewhat maturity, and there's some healing that's taken place already, so that the inner child can feel like you're trustworthy to want to
Mhm.
come with you on the journey of whatever surrender or further healing or whatever that might be.
Hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful. One of the things I learned in the last number of years is how to tune in with my inner elder and my inner adult and child all together.
Yeah,
And and so there's this process of just like you know getting centered in and then calling in my inner elder and just kind of see what shows up. And for me it's like this sort of a blue Buddha type person, energy. And so like um and so there's this there's me, the adult self, and then the elder self. And so along the ways of just gathering those two essences of me, and before I connect with the inner kid, it creates a lot of safety.
yeah.
And so I hear what you're saying about making sure to do the work first, and so we can not be a hot mess,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, just I like that. Hmm.
Yeah, the little parts of us are that the first and foremost thing that they're looking for is safety, because
Yeah.
they didn't feel safe. And if we are able to provide that safety for them, they're going to integrate. And that's what this is all about. It's about integration, integrating ego, integrating our inner child self into this soul version of ourself, or this authentic self version, so we can be an integrated and whole human being, not all these fragments
Right. Right.
of people living in different parts of our psyche. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I want to unpack a little bit about emotion regulation, because I think this is so critical, because
Ah.
we people that have experienced trauma experience emotion regulation issues. So we have two types of emotion regulation issues. We have over-regulation, which is people who are emotionally avoidant, and then we
Mm.
have people who are under-regulated, who are people who are overwhelmed by their emotions, and they become flooded by their emotions. So um yeah, where would you identify yourself on that spectrum?
Wow, so beautiful. You're an amazing human being, by the way. I just have to tell you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I love this. I love what you just said.
Yeah.
Um, so 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 you said over flooded, and what was the other one again?
Over-regulation and under-regulation.
Mm,
Emotionally avoidant or emotionally overwhelmed.
okay. Um, Probably emotionally overwhelmed is the one is where I go to sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's more than the other one. I have both, but more the second one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I think what shows up is the most out of everything is fear is what comes up a lot.
Hmm.
And so where am I going with this? Let's see.
We have all the time.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's all about presence. It's so beautiful, because I love the way that, because I can feel your energy, I can feel your movement, and it's like you're so embodied, you're aligning to what has to come out instead of trampling it through here. So take the time, because the wisdom that you bring forth when you're aligned to your body is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do you remember the I shared with you, and this is something that I saw in my mm, healing retreats that my husband and I did last couple of years, and I developed 6 ways how to regulate intense emotions,
Mm,
and and one of them I shared with you, which was you start with I'm angry that, right? And it goes through all the emotions. I'm angry that, I'm afraid that, I'm worried that, I'm disgusted that, right?
yeah.
So it's anger, angry, disgusted, afraid, worried, um, and then secure, and then I'm secure that. What was the other one?
Excited that.
Excite. Thank you. Yes,
Mhm.
excited, excited that, happy that, and then grateful that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just by naming three or four of each, by the time we get to gratitude, my nervous system is completely like, oh, okay, because I just named exactly what was going on in each emotion, right?
Yeah.
And and I learned that from my therapist back in Seattle, and it was just fucking stunning to be like from like to like okay. Right. And so and so that was one major regulating intense emotions, and then also like just standing on one leg and balancing,
Hmm.
just again, that's like an embodiment thing of just like okay, I'm afraid or angry or whatever it is, and let's just stand on one leg and balance, um, and so that just kind of shape shifts the emotion,
Yeah.
and then I'm able to come back and then just start naming what's in the room. There's some Christmas lights, right? They're your surrender sign over there.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then who am I talking with? Here's Matt with his beautiful glasses and a nice smile. So literally, what is exactly in front of me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? To presence myself. So that's number 3. Um, and then exercise, dance is number, anything that's physical, that's number, movement wise. So that's number 4.
Yeah.
Um, getting together with a friend, hey, can you hold space for me right now? I need to just vent, or, I'm just experiencing some really intense stuff right now. That's number 5. And then number 6, I love writing,
Mm,
right? And to literally like write out whatever's happening, or writing or art, right? Painting it out.
yeah.
So those are my top 6.
Cool. Yeah, that's beautiful. And maybe you can share that. Do you have it as a blog or something written? Is it written out?
It's written out in my outline for the retreat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you can send me the link or something, that'd be great. I'll share it with people so they can have those 6 tips. Be
Yeah,
amazing.
beautiful. Yeah, I'll probably email it to you from there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, I would say for myself, I teach there's a 3-step process of emotion regulation that I teach, and basically it starts with acknowledging the emotion. So we first have to acknowledge that there's something going on, and oftentimes when people are really really dissociated, or they're really repressed, they don't understand emotions. They don't know what's what, and I totally get that. I've been there, and sometimes I can also still be like, what emotion is this? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So we don't need to be able to label it by name, but we just need to be able to label that it's present, and we acknowledge that it's
Mm,
there. And then the second step is to welcome the emotion. So we just say like, shame. I welcome I honor and I welcome your presence in my experience right now, and we allow it to be there, because oftentimes when we're so used to being emotionally dysregulated, it's because we are bringing in resistance to our emotions and we don't want them to be there. So anxiety comes knocking at the door, and we're just like pretend we don't hear it. And we pick up our phone and we start scrolling, and we grab food and we start eating. And then what happens is the knock gets louder and louder
Mm-hmm.
and louder until the doors
Mm-hmm.
eventually open. But then when you realize that when you open the door, which is through the action of welcoming everything, then you realize that anxiety actually isn't as big and scary as you thought it was. It's just because you're avoiding the thing that's trying to message you something that's happening that needs to be tended to, right?
Right.
Emotions are,
Right.
are messengers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
yeah. And then the third step is to feel. So once you've welcomed it, you've allowed it to be there, you feel the emotion. And that can be done in so many different ways. You can just sit with it, you can be with it, you can dance with it, it's just about being playful with the emotion and allowing it to have its moment, and then its energy, so it just moves on with its day, and it lets you be until the next emotion wants to come and bring it forth. And I think that, a lot of this stuff can't actually be healed and done until we are embodied, and that's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I'm working with clients, like the first approach I take with people is, how can we start to spend more time in stillness or in body and
Ah,
get out of our mind? So presence is so key. And oftentimes people think, well, I can't meditate, I can't sit still. But presence doesn't just have to be sitting in stillness. It can be doing something where you're embodied. So embodied dance looks like you're dancing, and as soon as you find yourself in your mind or in thoughts about what it's like to be dancing, you pull yourself back into your body. So it's just constantly getting yourself into the body is I think is key to trauma
yeah.
recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Hmm.
Well, I love that because I go to yoga, and that helps to move things through, and I love how um, that's a beautiful thing. I'd like to get that information from you as well. It's like acknowledging it, and then all the different ways to sit with it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've learned also is that um, is to have the emotion rather than the emotion having me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so when I have the emotion, I love when you said, like, let's acknowledge it. Okay, that acknowledgement can literally, like, just help to kind of like put it out in front of my body, or just kind of me getting some space from it, so that I'm able to, like, look at it basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so and then like you say, if there's dance, then we can, like, dance with it and have it be like another person or something, just like an energy to move around with, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I think oftentimes with people who are emotionally avoidant, um, the emotions are there anyway. We can't control the fact that emotion is going to become part of our experience. We can't control that. It'll happen regardless. And the more that we use these mechanisms to shut ourselves down from feeling them, the more that they get encapsulated inside of our bodies, and that's where they get stored. And that's why we have psychosomatic issues, which is like basically diseases and
Mm.
stuff in our body, because we have so much emotional density of these heavy emotions inside of us. And I call it like the emotional onion. And basically it's this, all of our, like, let's say our the center of the onion is our traumatic experience, and then every emotion that is trying to come forward to allow you to move through that trauma and release it, and you choose to stuff it down, it creates another layer on your emotional onion, and before you know it, you have this big heavy onion inside of you. And how we actually start to heal our trauma is by feeling the emotions that are trying to peel off of this onion, and then that's where we start to get to the core of what actually needs to be healed. And I think that a lot of the feelings that we're repressing are grief and
Yeah.
sadness, and these heavier emotions. And then obviously shame is a huge part of this as well.
Ooh.
I think it's
Mm.
probably one of the most difficult feelings to be with, shame,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of sorry, excuse me a second. Shame and guilt go hand in hand for me.
Yeah.
it's like the I was brought up by a Latin family, so
Yeah.
a Latin Italian family, so it's like Puerto Rican Italian guilt. Anyway, yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
It's quite
re-
intense.
yeah, yeah, anyway, okay, go on.
Yeah. Trying to think of what else we wanted to talk about. So tips. Um but why don't we each take a moment and just kind of feel into our bodies and see what wants to come forward? What sort of wisdom wants to come forward?
You know, have you ever heard of a book called It's Not Always Depression, and it's called it's I forgot the name of the author, but it's called it's the Change Triangle,
Yeah.
and you know, when you talk about dissociation, there's like this upside down triangle, and we have dissociative behaviors, and then other behaviors that are more sort of I wish I had that book now. Hmm. Sorry, I'm blanking out on that other part. But it just kind of leads to two different ways of dealing with emotions.
Mm.
One is active and one is uh, reactive,
Okay.
right? And so they all lead to like the seven core emotions. And remember the when I was telling you about all the going through anger through gratitude.
Yeah.
And so they go through from anger through joy, and their core emotions are anger, fear, sadness, um, excitement, sexual excitement, and then joy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so so shame and guilt are part of the some of the I guess the active ones for the subheading for emotions, right? And then anxiety, something else on the other side. So what it is that like the shame and guilt and then anxiety are basically the feelings or emotions that are leading to a core emotion,
Mm.
right? And so we talk about the emotions are in the body. It's just they just happen automatically, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so when we have our traumatic experiences, it's like everything's recorded in the body, like we were talking about earlier. And so the body is just it's just instantaneously just responds to any outside stimulus, right? And then we talk about I'm sorry, I'm blanking on that woman's name again.
Christina Lopes.
Christina Lopes, got it. Okay, duly noted. Okay.
She probably won't be watching this anyway, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. So and what she talks about, which is that we're highly sensitive people, and so all our emotions are in our bodies, and our trauma experiences are recorded. And so um, you know uh, with this model, it teaches about to go to the body directly, and to really like name. You don't necessarily have to, like you said before, not necessarily have to name the emotion,
Hmm.
but just like what's the body sensation happening. Like, okay, there's tightness over here, oh, and I'm feeling some sort of like you know some sort of like pulling in my belly, or feeling cool in this part of my body, or there's tingling. But just to kind of like to really be present with the body sensations,
Yeah.
right? And then as I be with the body sensations, then I'm able to kind of like let whatever emotion wants to surface from that surface,
Yeah.
right? And so so then that gives me an embodied way of moving through something, right? So it's like ocean waves.
Yeah.
right? The wave comes, the emotion comes, and it crashes, and we look at it, and then we look at it crashing,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And so there's always this um, I hate to say this, but it's a constant thing that just happens in our bodies.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so and then we talk about regulation, like, oh well, how do we regulate with that? Well, let's acknowledge it. Let's, what's happening in our body. Okay, this is what's going on. I don't necessarily have to name the emotion, but I'm feeling agitated. Okay, well, let's go with that. And
Hmm.
and then there's a way, once I kind of feel all that and to kind of get myself back in presence, then there's a question. Okay, what's the wisdom of this emotion slash sensation? Right, because I think we talked about earlier. I was learning you saying that was that all emotions are messengers or teachers, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're telling me like, hey, pay attention. Hey, let's set a boundary. Hey, let's uh, be more authentic here. Hey,
Hmm.
why don't we just like get centered and grounded first before we speak about something?
Yeah, exactly.
you know.
Yeah, what just came alive for me when you said that is the question, what is this emotion trying to teach me?
Yeah.
Because that's huge. And when we can start to look at our emotions as valuable instead of a pain in the ass, because the emotions are actually there to help you step one step closer to your authentic self. Because if it's a triggering emotion, it's triggering you to clear the stuff from your body that's no longer serving you, so you can embody your authentic nature. And if it's a positive emotion, it's teaching you that this is what you are going to taste when you fully embodied your authentic
Uh,
experience, right?
Beautiful.
So I do think that there's so much value to each emotion, and I think if we can learn to approach our emotional experience with the flashlight of curiosity versus the flashlight of judgment. Because
Woohoo!
how
Ding, ding, ding.
how often do we approach our emotions with like, ooh, like this judgment of like, oh, I don't want you in my experience. And then what does it do? It gets nastier, it gets louder. You bring resistance to something and it persists, right? So when we start to bring in the flashlight of curiosity, we're just trudging through our inner experience looking for things that are there to teach us something, right? Because curiosity always leads to value. You get value when you're curious, and when you judge, you just shut something off, shut something down.
Right.
So I think that's probably the tip I want to leave people with, is just try and be a bit more curious with your emotional
Yeah.
experience as
Yeah.
opposed to judgmental.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that because there's uh, what comes up in me with that is so there's two things. One is curiosity and vulnerability creates connection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right. So I don't think I've ever put those two together before because usually vulnerability creates connection, but it's like curiosity and vulnerability together
Yeah.
is quite something. So
Yeah.
that just kind of spoke up right now, just now. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I practice authentic relating, and I actually teach authentic relating. And um, it's really cool because curiosity and vulnerability are the two most important parts of authentic relating, because you need to be present. Well, I would say presence, vulnerability, and curiosity are the three components, because you need to be present in order for you to be vulnerable. And then in order for you to be vulnerable with another person, you also have to be able to be willing to be curious about
Yeah.
what's going on with their experience instead of being judgmental and projecting. So, and that's authentic relating. That's relating with your authenticity, is using vulnerability and curiosity.
Beautiful. I just got like butterflies in my belly when you said that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love authentic relating. It's changed my life. It's changed
Yeah.
my career. It's helped me change my coaching style, everything. It's beautiful. It's
Yeah. Good
beautiful.
work, man. That's really quite gorgeous.
Hmm. I want to finish off because I've been I think we often judge our trauma and we look at it as this big nasty monster. We don't want to deal with
Uh,
it. And I would love for us to end off with a sharing from each of us about what have we gained
mm,
and what value has our trauma given us.
mm, 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 mm. Hmm. What have we gained, and what value has trauma given us? Okay. Hmm.
I don't even know my own answer, so I'm going to take a minute.
Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Well, what shows up right now is I think the gain it's giving my it's giving me myself back, like my self-care. Um, yeah, I'm noticing the level of self-care for me is pretty up there, you know.
Mm,
And so I've gained um, you know, how to take care of myself so that I'm able to be present with another human being, right? With my work, sitting here with you,
mm,
you know, uh, anywhere, I think.
mm-hmm,
And and it also has given me the backdrop to draw on of like all the learnings that I've learned from doing my work over the last number of years, right?
mm,
Um, so when a client comes to me and talks about their traumatic history,
mm,
like I can like, super super duper deluxe like identify with them. I hear you. I've been there,
mm,
and then just by relating to them helps them to relax. Like, okay, I'm not the only one. Jesus Christ,
mm-hmm.
kind of thing. And so um an example. So I remember here in Maui, Ever and I were teaching a retreat back before we moved here, and so so we went to another room to do one-on-one process work, and so there were two students there that had something going on, and then uh, when I was processing one, and then what was coming through was like, okay, they need to talk to each other so they can work this out. So not a great idea because it just one of them exploded and started screaming and breaking things. And
Wow.
so so here's where my background comes in because I grew up with that kind of intensity,
Yeah. Mm,
right? Not to say that it was all the time, but a
yeah.
good part, right?
Okay.
So like I'm like, oh man, I know exactly what this is. And so I'm like, so I was able to be like, okay, well let's work all this out here, ladies, and so so I was able to just kind of be the calm or the eye of the storm,
Yeah.
right? And so that's a huge gain of you know right. So it's basically giving me what I do today, basically.
Yeah.
And then the value, just all the ways that I've learned how to parent myself and love myself, what we've been talking about today already. And so and all the 6 ways of regulating my emotions that we talked about, and um, and the different ways that I've in my shamanism training where we do our daily practice, and we go in great spirit and we pray to the 7 directions, and we call in what I would call my spirit team.
Mm. Yeah.
Right. And so like, okay, you guys, every day I go to the sun and I just ask, okay, what's my sacred intention for today? What's the wisdom that will most benefit me in this sacred day? And so then I get that intention, and and today is, let's see, peace. Um, oh boy, peace. Can't always remember in the morning, but speak my truth. Yeah, this is who I remember, but peace and speak my truth. So in the morning, I'll just say, okay, peace and speak my truth before me, behind me, peace and speak my truth above me and all throughout the universe, peace and speak my truth below me and all throughout the earth, peace and speak my truth on the right and left of me, peace and speak my truth within me, peace and speak my truth all around me and everywhere now. So it's like those words I put, before, behind, above, below, uh, to both sides, within myself and around me and everywhere now. And so it's like, that's how I walk through my day with that intention from the sun. Right. And then I go to my spirit team and do my prayer. So,
Yeah. Beautiful.
right. And so then that just helps me to like, okay, here's my spirit team. I got my power animals and everybody. And I ask for help for this day and to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
And so that's been a daily thing. That's been very helpful.
Cool. Yeah.
Um, so so the gains and values are those are just where life has just like shown me like, oh, okay, okay, especially when I was 25, I went through that. It's like what opened up the door was the the landmark forum, and so that opened up the door to like this whole 25 years of workshops
Wow.
and classes and therapy and all that jazz.
Yeah, that's amazing. You got 10 years on me. I
Oh,
I've been digging in for about 15 years now.
okay, okay,
Yeah, since I was 20.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
How about you?
okay, so what comes up for me? Quite a bit came up in your story actually. I resonate with your story quite a bit, and I think for me it would probably be around meaning and purpose. I think I've been called into this life to suffer so I can teach people how to work through their suffering and their pain. And I think that's why that's my purpose on this planet. And I've been aligned to my purpose since I was 20, really, since I've had a lot of suffering in my life up until this point. And I think I've been working with different spiritual teachers and working with my own spirit guides and my own intuition, and I have been told very clearly multiple occasions that the second half of my life is going to be my time to shine, and I'm going to really
Mm,
really step into a beautiful power, and I'm going to become a really strong leader in showing people how to move through.
yes.
So it's like, and my life has always been that way. Like, even in my business, it's so fascinating that when I make a transformation happen in a certain area of my life, I attract clients literally right after. And sometimes even while I'm going through the transformation. So it's like sometimes I'm only like 2 weeks ahead of my clients. And I'm like, I like literally just worked through this issue and integrated it. And now like I get a client. And that's the universe really rewarding me for doing the work. And then knowing that I'm still resonating in that beautiful energy, that it's
Mm,
I'm passing that on to my clients. And so I teach from experience, I coach from experience, and
mhm,
the energetic transmissions that I give to my clients are from the work that I've done within myself.
mhm,
I'm really just praying that I don't have to keep doing this through my whole life, because it's a bit taxing to be constantly going through suffering and transformation. I do see that there's going to be a point that I'm going to reach where my
yeah.
healing is going to be complete, and I'll be
Mhm.
working with real time issues, not past issues. And that doesn't mean that I
Mm,
won't still be traumatized, or I still won't deal with heartbreak and stuff, but there'll be issues of today, not issues of the past. And
mm,
that's what I'm really confident about moving forward. So and the value that's given me is deep connection, because through my empathy, I have the ability to connect with people in a really deep way.
Mm-hmm.
And my suffering has also humbled me. My trauma has also humbled me to the point where people feel safe with me. They feel like they can just show up and be their authentic self with me right off the bat, usually.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very, very big gift that I have in my life from people,
Yeah.
is when they just feel safe with me. I just think there's nothing more special, because I get to connect with people in a deep, authentic way. There's nothing more beautiful in this life than that, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so yeah, those are mine.
Yeah, I love that you said that creates a deep connection, and how people feel safe with you automatically. So I it's, I myself experienced that with you the first time I met you. So
Mm, yeah, thank
so
you.
yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, so that's I love that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I wanted to throw some light at you as well, because I disclosed to you at the beginning of this podcast that I'm kind of struggling today, and had a friend that passed away a few days ago, and I'm just in a really heavy energy. And
Mm-hmm.
you created this really beautiful bubble to
Mm-hmm.
come in and just be with you in this energy, and I just felt
Mm-hmm.
like you brought out this passion and this like um uh, yeah, just like an enthusiasm, because we're talking about these really beautiful concepts, and I'm feeling your energy. You have a really calming presence. And yeah, so thank you for this experience. It's been really beautiful, and I'm glad that we get to put this out into the world, and people get to consume this conversation and the energy that was exchanged between us. So
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for this moment. Yeah,
yeah.
likewise. Mm-hmm.
Did you, I don't want to put pressure on you, but did you want to escort us out with a prayer?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Yeah. Why
That
don't we
sounds
do
good.
that? Yeah.
All right, let's take a breath, and let's go ahead and I for the people out there, and us right here, for us to even connect with our hearts even deeper in this moment. So great and beautiful mystery. Thank you so much for this moment and time to bring forth the wisdom, the gifts, um, of your bounty and your sacredness. And we thank you for the clarity, the gift of clarity, speaking our truth without blame or judgment. And thank you for giving us clear vision, and to speak that beautiful wisdom as we in an embodied way. And we give thanks for the full, the clear, the strongly open heart, the unconditional love and acceptance that came through with Matt and I at this time, and for everyone. And we give thanks for the wisdom of our ancestors that came forward and um, helping us again to be embodied and to bring forth some clarity around uh, emotional intensity, but also to bring forth the joy and to bring forth that loving nature to all of our intense emotions and wherever we're at this time. And so that this medicine be a blessing for all the people. And we give thanks for the beautiful warrior medicine to lead with the heart and lead with the soul in a beautiful way with great integrity and impeccability. And beloved earth and sky, we thank you for your love and power, the integrative. We thank you for your tree of life, great mystery. And so thank you for all our spirit team to really support this beautiful podcast and around spirituality and trauma recovery and the chakras and all the ways that we can bring our true authentic self, right, and to really love all our emotions, to love every part of ourselves to the best of our ability, and that to know that just on the other side is this immense joy, immense light, exactly who we really are to begin with, right? And we're just clearing the pathway so that we can come back to this sacred joy. So gratitude, thank you so much. Great mission. May this medicine be a blessing to all the people that listen to this and offered up to the four winds and the four ways and wherever it might be needed at this time. Thank you so much. Aho. Amen.
Mm.
And thank you for Matt. He's an amazing human being.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I just want to finish off by saying if people are struggling with the pain of the past, that you're not alone, and to please reach out. That's why we are all here on this planet together. We're all walking each other home. Reach out to somebody if you're feeling alone and you're feeling like life is becoming overwhelming, because there's a lot of suffering on this planet right now. There's a lot of people that are taking their life because they feel overwhelmed by their emotions and their mind. And sometimes all we need is just to reach out to somebody and just connect. Human connection. It's why we're here for each other. So please reach out if you find that you're struggling. You're not alone. Yeah.
Beautiful.
So yeah, thank you for tuning in, everybody. Much love to you all.
Uh-huh. Very well, everybody.